And the topic that we're going to talk about today is bringing out the woman. Okay, this is going to be a very free and easy discussion. It's just a bit of sharing. You're welcome to raise questions any point of time. What we'll start off with is probably ask each individual panelist what their image of God is. So who would like to do this? You have to share this.
This is like sacrifice me first. I want to just start out by saying that this is the panel I least wanted to be on, and the topic I least wanted to talk about while I was here. Probably because it's the hardest for me to talk about. Because my image of God is not gender-based. Like everyone here, at least people who were raised in the Christian tradition, and I don't know how many people that is here, but I was schooled in a highly patriarchal, misogynist, homophobic theological perspective. But that experience has not inspired in me a quest for balancing male with female images, but rather a spiritual journey that has and continues to lead me beyond gender-based identities for God. And that I find is more compatible with my belief in the gospel as a radical social manifesto. It is my contention that even in the case of the highly patriarchal, male-oriented language of the scripture, the intent is not the conveyal of the message that God is a man. That, I think, is the result of our projections, certainly not the result of God's revelation to us. I understand the purpose of our exploration tonight, at least the original purpose, was to consider what might be more attractive to women, specifically lesbians and trans women. But ultimately, I think we have to be concerned with what best represents our experience with God and calls us into a deeper exploration of the presence of God in our lives and the lives of people around us. Beyond the importance of remembering that what we read in English or Mandarin or Malay in any language is merely a translation unless we ourselves are doing the painstaking work of piecing original manuscript bits and pieces together in forms of Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek that are not at all the same kind of modern constructs that we might be familiar with. It's important to also remember that language is merely the container, the instrument of the concept. To call God Father or Mother, for that matter, is not, I think, to ascribe gender, but rather to ascribe characteristics or ways of relating. If we presume that a mother or a father, and there are both images of God in the scriptures, Psalm 139 will speak about God as the one who knit us together in our mother's wombs, which is, I think, an inherently female image. Jesus will talk about his desire to gather the people of Jerusalem together as a mother hen gathers her chicks in Matthew chapter 23. Our God is like an eagle, Isaiah will say, who teaches her young to fly. I am your consoler, Isaiah will say in chapter 51. Can a mother forget her child? If we presume that a father or a mother is answering the phone, is ideally protective or faithfully loving or gently corrective or nurturing, watching over us, guiding us into maturity, then to call God Mother or Father is to prescribe those characteristics to God. But our God is not a human being, Numbers 22 will say. The danger, I think, is obviously in the experience of millions of people around the world whose parental encounters were or are of brutality, not tender acceptance, abandonment, not steadfast presence, harshly demanding, not gently guiding, and that using names that are associated with parental figures for God will only hinder, not help spiritual growth. Far better, I think, to call God God, or our Creator, or our source of life, what presumably the patriarchal titles are after anyway. In John's 6th chapter, after his version of the miracle of the loaves and fishes, Jesus will run away when he hears people want to make him a king, want to give him that title. It is a title that he eschews. His most frequent self-appellation is child of humanity, a reference culled from the book of Daniel. We often translate as son of man and miss the point totally. It was Jesus' way of saying, I am one with you, I am one like you, a child of humanity. Though he uses the term Abba, he is again conveying a concept of tender dependence, better translated as daddy, though I don't want the gay men here to think that I am translating it as Poppy or anything like that. We translate it as daddy, but John McNeil, who's a Jesuit scholar, says that the best translation conceptually would be mommy, meaning that Jesus has a sense of total dependence upon God for his well-being and provision. And there might be many, many ways that we could choose to express that. That said, I think it remains critically important that we lift up both the diverse spiritual images of God, and there are many, and the stories of girls and women in the Bible to talk about our images of God. And I don't know if you want me to do that now or let somebody else talk for a while and I can come back and do that. You're next.
Reverend Pat says I'm next and I must be next. Here I am, the lone male amongst these three powerful women. What am I going to say on the topic this evening? Appreciate what Reverend Pat has shared, lifting up the some biblical perspectives on this particular issue. Nevertheless, the perception of many people is still patriarchal, hierarchical God. And we always can use scripture to affirm this or the other position. But I want to approach it in some sense from my own experience. I grew up in a traditional Chinese family, and my father at the turn of the last century had the privilege of enjoying English education and served in the British colonial service. However, my mother had only the opportunity to have a few years of Chinese education in a typical Chinese village and remained throughout her life as a housewife, looking the three roles of a woman, traditional roles, looking after the husband,